Alright, Magical Girl Raising Project Arc 2, Season 2, however you want to call it. This is Magical Girl Raising Project Restart. I blasted through volumes 2 and 3 after reading the first one. Oh my goodness, the writing definitely improved and has benefited from having two volumes to flesh out the characters rather than just one. Near the end, I'd say I was pretty emotionally destroyed. So let's just get into it. I'm going to rank these. I've gone ahead and recreated the list I've done for the first part on a different tier list. This one has a lot more, um, and it seems there's a lot more for me to discover through this. But there's some side characters. I think this is like Magical Daisy's lion partner or something. I'm sure there's like other little side characters, but I got the most important ones from Restart over here, and I'm gonna rank them in the same tier list, especially because there are some influences from past characters in Restart's story. And I'll actually start with those. Snow White's going up to SS. In I mentioned in the last part that she pulled winning by doing absolutely nothing. She didn't kill anybody, and this gremlin creature did mention that during Restart. Um, Snow White's changed, probably for the worse. She's taken a hold of Swim Swim's weapon and Magicaloid's bag, and has kind of become a vigilante or maybe an enforcer for the Magical Kingdom, it seems, and is punishing evil magical girls. And honestly, I think that's pretty neat way. It's a neat way to take a character moving forward. I'm curious on how she'll develop, but just that intrigue alone has pushed her up to SS. I already liked her a lot as a protagonist, and seeing kind of like what she's become is very, very intriguing. So right now, she's going up there. Um, Cranberry is staying the same at S. I do still like these two more, but it cannot be understated the effects of Cranberry across this entire cast. I did not even realize that Cranberry was holding multiple Magical Girl death battles in pursuit of her ideology, thanks to this little bastard over here. It turns out, rather, it's implied in Restart that Fav used Cranberry's trauma to make her the way she is because of his boredom, and that's why Cranberry turned out the way she did. Um, and that's just kind of wild. But we'll get into Cranberry and her effects a little more as we delve deep into here. So, girl on the cover, Pechka. I did not, honestly, I did not care for her at first. Her whole thing about trying to seem beautiful and trying to get the attention of Ninomiya. I mean, maybe there was something room for development there, and lo and behold, there was. Petska's getting an A. I think she really does grow over the course of the series. Her sacrifice at the end near Clantel is pulling worthy, if I can even word words correctly. She grows enough as a character that I can appreciate what she started as more. Um, and she also overall has a cute design. She's the typical frilly magical girl. She's a coward, 200%. She's a coward, but I like how she grows out of that at the critical moment, using her ability to change anything into food to go ahead and get one over Melville, even if it ultimately was not a favorable end for Pechka. But as a protagonist, or rather as one of the few protagonists of Restart, in terms of the viewpoints that we see, I think Pechka's pretty neat. And for the growth that was attributed to her, I can definitely appreciate it. And I do appreciate even more how her viewpoint kind of gets us into these three's dynamic with her and the other magical girls. Because I really like Pechka's party a lot. Rianetta, I had my eye on her from the beginning. Controlling dolls, she was the only one who didn't have her whole ability really used that much, and they actually mention that when they're in the Evil King's castle, when she finally moves golems. She's a doll magical girl. She has the ability to control dolls with her mind, and I'm gonna have to bring in Geno Psycho and Meow Meow over here to go forward. Um, but basically, Rionetta, it's revealed that she was to who the accomplice to Melville, and see, there's a lot of connections, so it's kind of hard to do all these magical girls individually, but she's basically an assassin, always working for money. We don't really know fully her situation, but it's implied that she really needed money, or was raised in a way where she sought after money, and she kind of puts herself higher than other people a little bit. She gets a B. Her ability is interesting, and the fact that she was actually inside her doll the entire time is pretty interesting. Geno Psycho is so confusing. It's confusing. Let me read out her name, which gives me dyslexia every time. Geno Psycho Yumenoshima. Where do I start? Her role in the story is so odd. She's just a spunky magical girl, right? And then she gets killed, but her body disappears. And from that point, you're like, oh, a good part of the first book is the mystery of what happened to her body, and everything that went along with it. Her visor here, if she puts it down over her eyes, she becomes invincible. But Akane, this one, managed to cut through it because of her ability. So Geno Psycho's kind of like missing, and then she appears at the end of the first book and pulls a double suicide with her friend at Meow Meow here. But there is a mention in the first book of her having stitches on her face, and that's what clued me in to Rionetta. I was like, Rionetta somehow stitched up Geno Psycho's wound, and is probably controlling her and causing more confusion because she's up to something, right? And I was right. It's just not in the full context. So Geno Psycho, I mean, she gets a B. I liked her for what she was. Her ability was neat. She swam through lava. She has a cute design. It's unfortunate how early she went, but she was more so of a foothold for both Melville and Rionetta, I suppose, and for at Meow Meow as well. But I can appreciate definitely what they were going for there. At Meow Meow, I could say A. I mean, she has her talismans and all that. She's part of Magical Daisy's party, or Noko's party, I guess you could say, because of what happens. And she has an abrupt end because of Geno Psycho over here, or rather, because of Rionetta controlling Geno Psycho's body as a doll. Her design is neat. I like the flashy red hair and the kicks and the talismans, and she's actually one of the few magical girls that are aware of the situation a little bit, of the full context of what everyone here has done and the context of the game and everything, because she starts piecing back together memories. So there's a little bit of intrigue with her, and then she gets burned to a crisp by the Great Dragon. I don't really have much to say on her, but she was pretty neat for what she was. I'm gonna put Nonaka, is that her name? Yes, Nonako, excuse me. I have trouble remembering her name because I think of like long names and I think of Geno Psycho because I try to remember her name so much. Nonako, the French one. She can control animals. She's always arguing with Rionetta, and that's basically their whole dynamic. And it actually gets revealed why they were arguing so much later on, which kind of like opened my eyes a bit, and it was pretty neat. She was alright. I mean, when she died and Rionetta and her fought and she ended up dying in the library, that was kind of where everything started going bad. And it's just kind of she was a catalyst. I can appreciate her dynamic with Pechka because it seems like overall she was the one before her death to kind of like full force for friendly fire. Wait, I worded that wrong. Full force, show her friendship for Petchka, and her appreciation. Keep in mind, all three of Petchka's party's mates were all like, this girl's useless, she's cowardly, she can't fight, and all that. As soon as you give a girl some good food, they're like, oh, hey, alright. And Nodoka here was definitely probably the strongest of that. But, for what she did, she was neat. I like how she was somewhat brutal to her animal companions, and I don't mean that in a weird way, but she abandoned her goblin for her dragon and was ready to abandon her dragon if need be. She was just like a quirky member of the cast, and it was just neat to see her and what she did. Clantail is going into S. I love Clantail so much. She's probably the coolest magical girl here. The way her design is, her ability, the way she fights, her relevance in the story. She's one of the 3 survivors as well. Clantail is great. She can transform the lower half of her body into different animals. Usually that means she's some sort of centaur, like a horse. She does turn into a lamia at some point. I think there's a crocodile, a gecko. And then at the climax, she turns into the great dragon. So basically, where the animal's neck would be, her torso upwards is. So you can kind of imagine how pretty creative the fighting scenes can go with that. Like, she turns into a giraffe at one point, a gorilla. It's great. And what's great about Clantail, in my opinion, is that her animal traits show off her emotions more than her face. Because she's reserved, but she's also the party leader. So she kind of has a sense of responsibility about her, but it's not shown through her face, and you can kind of see Clantail slowly develop more and more emotions towards her party throughout the course of the books, and especially towards the end when that whole chase scene with Melville and Petchka and everything, and when she screamed Melville's name after Petchka died and all that, like that whole climax with Clantail, not even with her fighting Melville, but with her fighting Piffle and Shadowgale. Clantail's great. There was not a moment where I was not happy to see Clantail. She's great. I hope she appears more, maybe like Snow White does. She's awesome. I don't know what to say. Like, she's just top of the line. I love her so much. Magical Daisy is an interesting case because the book starts off with Magical Daisy, and I was thinking, oh, okay, we're starting with Magical Daisy, not Petchka, who's on the cover of the book. Is this going to be like a hardcore Alice situation where she's going to come into play later down the line? No, Magical Daisy is the false protagonist, and she dies first. She has a really cute design. I like the pale green with the yellows, and kind of like grays a little bit, purple eyes. She has a real fun design. And in universe, how she's probably the oldest one here. She's kind of like middle-aged, past university, washed up, living in a cruddy apartment, She focused so much on her magical girl duties when she was younger that she has a rough present. She didn't consider her future outside of magical girlhood. Now that the sparkles and fame of magical girl being a magical girl has died down, she's just kind of washed, And I thought that was really interesting to have for a magical girl protagonist, and I was just wondering how things would go from there. And then she dies first. She pulls a Nemarine, and one of my favorite designs dies first. That's always how it goes, huh? Her ability is Daisy Beam, which vaporizes anything it hits. She goes ahead and uses Daisy Beam to try and show off to her party. Show off to her party, and especially Noko here. And she shoots it at a red skeleton, not reading the monster encyclopedia within the game, and then vaporizes herself and dies. So she's a B. I do like her a lot. I'm sure if she was within the story a lot longer, she'd probably be an S for me, but I can't in good faith put her on the same level of Clantail. she does act. There's a lot of characters in this series, or rather, that I can describe that act as development for other people. Moko related to Magical Daisy, and not necessarily on a personal level, but D-Tech Bell kind of gets her groove going because of Magical Daisy's death. But we'll get to that when we get to her. But I do like Magical Daisy a lot. Actually, it looks like the fourth volume of Magical Girl Racing Project is a collection of side stories. I've actually started reading. I read the first two. The first one focused on Nemarine, and it just solidified my B placement because the little bit we did get of her, it was pretty neat. Actually gave more context to why Swim Swim took over Ruler. Nemarine was like, "You should just become a princess yourself," and Swim Swim was like, "Whoa!" And lo and behold. And then Magicaloid 44, turns out that stuff I pointed out from the anime, where it was her friend's phone, not hers, was mentioned in the side stories, which means the anime was made at least after Volume 4 of Magical Girl Racing Project, which is interesting. There's a little bit of a timeline I have now. And yeah, she remains here at B. And because Magicaloid was with these peeps, they also remain where they are. I'll probably quickly come back to this tier list after Volume 4 and make any necessary changes if I feel I need to. Something tells me that I won't. But who knows, we'll see. Noko. Where do I start with Noko? Well, she takes over kind of the protagonist role in terms of being the viewpoint for Magical Daisy's party. And you learn that she's one of the younger ones. She's 10 years old and has been a magical girl since she was 4, which is crazy impressive. And both of the books go into fine detail on how she's learned to use her magical powers in her daily life to such an extent where they've grown so much that she trains them day in, day out, both in the game and in the real world. And she's a little diabolical with it in terms of using it for her own self-interest. But there's also a certain understanding that you can derive from her actions, right? So she has the ability to manipulate emotions depending on what she is feeling. So if she feels joy, she can transfer joy to the people around her. And it's in such a way where she's fooled her own emotions to act a certain way pretty often so she can get the results that she wants. She has a mother in the hospital that she eases the depression of. Her class at school, she always has them in amicable feelings and with joy everywhere. And it's especially interesting when they're in the 3-day cycle of the game, because in Restart, there's 3 days in the game where you're fighting for your life, 3 days in the real world, and it goes like that. But the 3 days in the game are just a second in the real world, so time is distorted for all of them, and it's rough. It's rough out here. But Noko, I think, is great. I think that all the little tidbits we get of her perception of everyone else, depending on how she views them through the emotions they convey, and her analysis of battles is so great. I was so devastated when she, quote unquote, died, burned when Shadow Gale found her. But I was like, something's off about that, right? Because both her and who was it? Was it Lapis Lazuli? Yeah, her and Lapis Lazuli, however you want to say it, disappeared from behind Piffle and Shadow Gale. And I was like, okay, Lapis can go ahead and teleport, but what about Noko? And lo and behold, she's the villain. Not, out of entirely her own interest, but she is in fact the evil king, the one that all the girls must kill in order to be freed, while her mission is in fact killing all the other girls. And you have Clantail, Piffle, and Shadow Gale fighting for their lives at the town square in the wasteland in the climax, right? Or rather the falling action, maybe you want to say. I feel like Melville was the climax, but rather in the falling action, right? And you have this from specifically Shadowgale's point of view. And throughout the second book, especially, there's been this build-up of Shadowgale having doubts about Piffle. Is Piffle the evil king? Piffle's actions, they seem a little, mischievous, a little dubious, And we both, when I say we, I mean Shadowgale and I, fell for Noko's trap. Noko has the ability to manipulate emotions, and we've seen this ability work on magical girls before. Especially when they were fighting the Great Dragon, and she, no, not the Great Dragon, well, yes, the Great Dragon, but also when they were fighting the clones of Magical Lloyd and of La Pucelle. And it didn't occur to me that this was Noko. I didn't think she had that power. But it hinted at this earlier on in the series when it said she was training on. I just didn't connect the dots. Her being the evil king threw me for such an emotional loop. And then you realized she's living and trying to do this for her mother, who is sick, who's been sick in the hospital for 2 years. She's a 10-year-old girl who has to take care of herself and do this. And she cut off her hand. And like when they discover her on the fountain, the remaining 3, and she just accepts her fate, I was gone. Noko, the way her viewpoint was written was brilliant. I was genuinely surprised with how she ended up and what her role was. And I could say so much more, but I can't put it into words. Noko is an immediate SS because, man, is all I can say. Piffle is going right next to her, though. I love Piffle. Something about how Shadowgale is used as a viewer of Piffle's viewpoint, if you know what I mean. Piffle would not work as well as a character if we saw her viewpoint at all, but we never see her viewpoint. It's always Shadowgale. Shadowgale is her servant, Piffle's from a rich family, yada yada yada, right? Piffle is calculating, she's crude, but with good intentions, but she also just has that dog in her, if you know what I mean. She's not afraid to do what she needs to do, but also has the best interest of everyone in mind. Now, that does usually mean that Shadowgale is worked to the bone, but there's Piffle, the way she acts like an old man, her design purposely being off of her grandfather. Shadowgale, one of Shadowgale's viewpoints in the first book, in Volume 2, right, the first book of Restart, they went into like a whole page of detail on how Piffle designed her magical girl self, and I found it brilliant. I love when we get details like that, because all of these girls design their outfits, right? Like Noko, of course she would put herself as a maid because she's a young girl and she's been learning how to clean and manage for herself, right? And like she considers cleaning one of her better traits and qualities because she's been doing it for 2 years because her mother is in the hospital and her father left. Like, of course Noko is going to have a maid design because that's what she feels attached to as a young person. Of course Piffle is going to do something like that so extravagant and intricate to represent her grandfather because she was close to her grandfather, and Piffle's just like that. She's extravagant and intricate and meticulous, and she would match everything like that to a T, even if she doesn't even need a wheelchair. The wheelchair is technically her ability. Her wheelchair can go super fast, right? She didn't need the wheelchair. She put it purposely in her magical girl design, which, by the way, magical girls have enhanced physical abilities almost incomprehensible to an incomprehensible amount, and she still put the wheelchair there to represent her grandfather. Like, Piffle's design and the reasoning behind it is great. Piffle's relationship with Shadowgale is really entertaining. I like how Piffle is judging people based on her own standards, not through deduction. She considers it deduction and can't understand that Shadowgale needs something more. but still gives Shadow Gale that something more so Shadow Gale can come to her own conclusions about the situation. Piffle is great. Even with a goofy name, PFLE, I think you pronounce it Piffle. I'm saying Piffle. It's cute, whatever. Conaway is her real name, but Piffle is just great. I also like how she's willing to give up that that wheelchair she uses so much for the fight against Churn a Mouse, and even trading it for the magic carpet afterwards. And I hope we see more of her. She survived, and she seems genuinely considerate of the 12 magical girls who died. So, or rather, no, to 14, the 14 magical girls who died because they visited 2 and they had 12 more to visit with Shadow Gale and Clientele. Yeah, it's just, I don't know what to say. Piffle is great. Shadow Gale gets an A. She gets a high A though, because I do like her more than Tama. I'm not sure if I'm ordering all of these, but actually, I guess I can order them real quick. You know, I'll put all of them here on the list and then reorder them afterwards. But she's gonna be a high A. Shadow Gale, I mentioned, is really useful in seeing Piffle and what she's doing. As a protagonistic viewpoint, I find it especially interesting when Noko is manipulating her emotions to have doubt. I think her struggle as a servant to someone above her, but also maintaining that dedication despite her grievances with it, is pretty interesting. Her whole nurse design, it's like a monochrome nurse with a combination of mechanic, because her ability is to basically magically enhance tools and stuff. So she got giant shears, and I think she's got what was it, a wrench +7 as her weapon. While I actually don't have much to say about Shadow Gale, she seems one of the most affected, being prone to regurgitating what she has eaten in horror and fear, and she seems most affected by the deaths of the other magical girls. She's kind of there to be the human aspect in all this cast of colorful and wacky characters. She is also one of the ones that has a more human aspect to her, kind of like Petra does. So I do appreciate her role and what she does. Masked Wonder. This is tough, right? Because she's I guess, comic relief, but she's not supposed to be, because she dies second and is meant to inspire horror and Shadow Gale. There's not much to work with here. I really like her ability of changing weights. So that's she can change the weight of anything that's herself or anything she touches. And her whole how do I say, Phantom Thief tuxedo mask design is really cute. But we didn't get much of her. So I'll put her in B, because I like her. I actually do like her more than the Angels. But there's not much to say about her. She was cute. She was fun. I like her design a whole bunch. That's all I can say, really. And I can basically say the same thing for Akane. Rather than cute, though, she's kind of terrifying. Akane is the first big hint that Cranberry has something to do with this game, because she's the third to die. I guess technically fourth, third/fourth to die. But she only says, "Are you the musician?" And if someone is not the musician, then she leaves. And if they are the musician, she slices her sword and causes havoc. You can tell that because of Cranberry and her actions, Akane has been mentally traumatized to such a point that she's got tunnel vision on what she feels she needs to accomplish. We get almost nothing on her. All we know is that her real body is in a hospital, and that she's looking for the musician, which of course is Cranberry. She dies with a wicked smile on her face, thinking that she has killed the musician, mistakenly thinking Cranberry is Gino's psycho because Gino said that, oh yeah, I'm a musician, I like Vocaloid and stuff, which by the way is a points to Gino Psycho. You go, girl. Vocaloid is great, but yeah, Akane is really cool for what she is, but she didn't serve much of a purpose other than being a menace and having a really cool ability. If she sees something, she can slice it, which means she can go through Gino's impenetrable armor. So, yeah, I mean, she served her role well and then got pancaked by a building that she cut. So, Detect Bell is an A. I really like Detect Bell a lot. Um, her ability and design is really suited for this slower take on Magical Girl Racing Project, because this is Restart is more of a mystery rather than a full-on battle royale, or at least at first, right? So if Detect Bell kisses a building, she can speak to the spirit of a building and ask it any questions and even favors. Of course, some buildings are not going to give facts about the owner of the building or their tenants or yada yada yada. But Detect Bell is interesting because she's paranoid. She's probably the most paranoid one of the Restart group. And as a detective, that's an interesting dynamic for sure. I don't even think I've ever seen the concept for a detective magical girl. I'm sure it's been done, but I like the way that Detect Bell has been done here. And she's not a fighter, right? And she doesn't die fighting. She dies by getting javelined in the back by a certain Cranberry superfan, but we'll get to her. I think her ability is kind of goofy, but really neat. I think her internal strife between her relationship with her party and then her growing friendship with Lapis later on is really, really nice and also heartbreaking. But she pulled through. She pulled through and helped the group even through her death. And I do respect Detect Bell's viewpoint a lot for that, because it was interesting. She was the one who gave us most of the real world, right? So other than Pechka, Nina Mia, but that was such a closed off view. And Noko and her school is also kind of closed off. Detect Bell gave us a broader view of not just the outside world, but of the things going on all over the place. She was great, and I really liked what she did, and I knew, like, you have a detective in a mystery story in a death game, she's gonna die. There's no way she's gonna die. In the afterword for one of the two volumes, even like the author's niece was saying she was gonna die, and I mean, die she did, but she's great. Lapis, Lazuline, I don't know how you ever want, whatever you want to say, that's how you spell it right there. I say Lazuline. S tier, I'll be honest, she was forgettable, and then she wasn't. And that's thanks to Detect Bell. Like, Lapis had a thing with Masked Wonder where they were like, fighters for justice, and they struck poses and everything. And, I was like, okay, so it's going to be a goofy duo. One of them's going to die, and then one's going to get all serious, and lo and behold, one did die. But she still kept her goofy demeanor, and she was really peppy and upright, and honestly, I respected her near the end. And then you find out she was never meant to be part of this, because every one of the girls in Restart is I guess you could say as Keek, which is her name, but as Keek puts it, one of Cranberry's children, someone who has emerged from one of Cranberry's killing games and has slaughtered other people to gain the title of a true magical girl, right? Lapis is not that. she was granted her title due to the first Lapis Lazuli, and she was her disciple, and then through the magical kingdom she got the name Lapis Lazuli. Her original name was Blue Comet, but the stuff that's been instilled into her attitude, her remarkable fighting ability. She's really fun in the last fight against Melville. Her whole attitude and just her like honest and upright nature and commitment to justice, especially after Belle dies. She quickly grew, and I was like, I really hope she survives this fight against Melville. I really, 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 really do. And then as soon as I was thinking that she gets pierced in the heart by the javelin, I was like, no. But she's up there. Clantail and Lapis fighting against Melville. That whole sequence was great, and they deserve to have a double S right there, or rather next to each other. They are in S, because I love both of them. The first Lapis, we don't know much about her, but she gets a B because she created this Lapis. That's all I have to say. Churnamouse is our first C from Restart. I don't particularly have anything against Churnamouse. Her design is cute. Hamster girls are cute. She munches on big sunflower seeds and then also goes big. Her, whole fight with the tank that Piffle was controlling was awesome. And I think her death was the first death that truly surprised me, right? Because the deaths in these novels, at least in these first 3 volumes, they're sudden, abrupt, and you can't expect them. Once they're there, once it happens, that's that. Right? There's no long, overdramatic explanation. It's just kind of how death works in real life. You don't expect it when it comes, and when it comes, it's already happened, right? And that's kind of a grim thing to say, but it really adds to the weight of all these characters and how they live and how they die. So Cherna gets points for having a cute design. She's honestly top of C. And her whole giantess power is pretty neat. But to me, the thing that sticks out to her about her most is her death. So, where do I start with Melville? My goodness. So, Melville's whole shtick is being bootleg, rip-off Cranberry. And let me delve a little bit deeper into that. As you can clearly see, she's not going here, by the way, but as you can clearly see, she's got quite a similar design and, how do I say, aura vibe about her, even though she's completely different once you get to know her. But Melville talks in what I think is a Scottish accent, so it makes her dialogue hard to read, but you get used to it. From immediately, you suspect her, right? Because she has the flowers in the hair, the blonde hair, the pointed ears. Her design is less regal, than Cranberry's, and more like frivolous, right? Because she's got like the helix, twin tails, and the drills near her cheeks, and she's got a little bit of vines on her legs. But then, unlike Cranberry, she doesn't have control over sound. She has control over how she appears. If Cranberry distorts sound, she distorts visuals, right? She's an illusionist. The front page, when it's listing all the magical girls and gives all these chibis where all these art comes from, all the art comes from, it says, and I'm quoting this, can change her color at will. And everyone, including me, took it at face value. Then you realize it's a lot more than that. She's a full illusionist. She was the one who manipulated Cherna's count so she could die. She was the one who, what else did she do with her? She was the one who obscured Gino's body. She was the one who roped in Rianetta because she was under the full impression that she was the evil king. No, it was Noko. She wanted to be Cranberry with all her might and soul, and the book mentions that when she's finally revealed as a unlike Swim, Melville is harder to understand, right? Not just verbally, but also motivation wise, because she's doing all this to become like Cranberry, right? But like she's so painfully aware that she can't be like Cranberry that she works even harder to become like her. She's desperate. Like, you think she's this like cool-headed, slick, smooth person throughout the story. Inside, nah, she's desperate. She's desperate. And I don't know. I really don't know how I feel about her. Like, I feel like I need to reread at least volume 3, maybe volume 2 and 3, to really put my feelings on her. She's not even like the main villain, but she made me feel a lot of anger and a lot of confusion, and I was really happy when Clantail finished her off. So in that sense, she goes over Akane, she goes over Masked Wonder, she goes over Magical Daisy, and these two, and even Rianetta. She goes there. She's like her ability. She's changed so much about herself and like what her role is in the story that I can't fully place her. So the best I can do is put her in the middle, and that's where she goes. Keek is a C. Her design is literally undergarments and then a lab coat, which, okay, she has a Rubik's Cube that she wears around her neck. Okay, I do like glasses, I'm pretty sure she's the only girl on here so far with glasses. Her motivation, she's the master of the game, right? So she's Cranberry's role in terms of actually making this death battle happen. But her whole thing is that Cranberry's ideology is flawed, and yet she's enacting another death battle because of that flaw. And when she gets proven in a contradiction by Snow White at the end, she just falls into an abyss within her own digital world, and her soul doesn't escape. I don't think it's that satisfying of an ending for her. Like, yeah, she's the biggest hypocrite on earth right now. Yeah, she was like how do I say, one of Cranberry's children, which she despised so much. Right, so basically she didn't want magical girls who were selfish and abrasive and killed and did whatever. She wanted true, pure magical girls. So she took all magical girls that were Cranberry's children, aka magical girls who killed to get their power, and then put them in a new death game after wiping their memories, or rather the Magical Kingdom wiped their memories, but after the memories were wiped. And she's like, alright, this is how we're going to get a true magical girl. If you have virtue and peace, you'll survive this, and you won't die. And yet she encourages killing, which I'm guessing is like to have these magical girls fall into traps for her, so she can kind of make her point. And when Snow White is talking to her during the Master Science chapters, which are little interludes between all the big chapters, you get bits and pieces of her, but in terms of how things ended, she got what she was coming. She's more interesting than these peeps, I'll say. But I can't really find myself liking Keek that much. Keek, I think it was pronounced Keek. Let me just look here. Yeah, such a weird design. She's got like a belt around her waist without anything else besides the undergarments, and 2 Rubik's Cubes, and then like high highs. What a weird design. Definitely the weirdest design. And in terms of antagonist, while she may be the instigator like Cranberry was, it's truly Melville and in a sense Noko that really take the cake. Um, so she's underneath her pawns in this tier list. Lastly, we have Fall. Fail? Fave? Fall? Fall? Fail? I don't know how, whatever. I say Fav and Fall. I actually like Fall. Not more than, rather a little more than the first Lapis, I'll say. Um, because he's the opposite of Fav. He's someone who doesn't want this to happen. He's also as confused as the magical girls when people start dying. Um, and he hates Keek, and you know what? I can respect it. He's the one that calls Snow White, which means he's the reason Snow White's in the story. I can respect it. There's not much to say on him. He's the same model as Fav, but with a lot more of a tender heart. He's not bored with the magical girls. He actually wants to help them. And Piffle notices that Fall doesn't like Keek, and is able to derive a lot more from this whole situation because of that. So I appreciate him. He's a little guy who deserves to be called a little guy rather than a little bastard. You feel me? And I think that's everyone for a restart. Again, you have like Magical Daisy's partner here, and I'll probably come back to this a little bit after I read Volume 4, or maybe after the next arc, which might be limited. I think that's 5 and 6 or something. I don't know. We'll see. But let me order the tiers a little bit more. Well, C is ordered. I'm honestly, Piffle is my favorite, and it's probably gonna go like that. These two are honestly brilliant characters, and I was so happy that I had the chance to read about them. This Cranberry's dropping a few places, honestly. Hardcore Alice 2, top Clantel is like top speed ish in a way, in terms of how emotional I felt regarding them. The Clantel lived. I think that works there. And then A, I really do like Tama. Pechka, La Pucelle or Pechka. Pechka made me feel more. Shadow Gale is at the top. The Tech Bell is also up there. Yeah, and then B, let's see. Winter Prison's probably gonna go around here. Nonako, we're arguing. Let's see. Melville deserves to be there because I have no idea. Vianetta, her conspirator, I guess you could say. She had more screen time. I think that works. I do like Magical Daisy out of like the 3 people who die real early. Do I like Geno Psycho more than I like Weiss Winter Prison? That's a very good question. The design's cuter, in my opinion. I think we'll go with that. And that should be it for Restart. Boy, what a emotionally draining set of books. I can't wait to subject myself to more more torture like this, but thankfully it seems book 4 is on the more lighthearted side. Again, I've read Nemarines and Magicaloids. Sword Stories, those were the first 2. And it seems there's like 8 or 10 more after that, so that's pretty neat. But I'll return here if need be. If not, then you'll see me after whatever is after book 4. Whether that's limited or black or white or jokers, aces, queens. I think those are the next few series. I don't know which comes first. I'll be using this list from now on, so I'm just going to hope and pray that it has all the characters. It looks like the artist changes a few times. Like after here, like all this, or maybe they're from like manga or other spin-offs or something. But yeah, Magical Girls, they're awesome, and Magical Girl Raising Project, at least the first 3 volumes, has been a joy and a horror to read. Can't wait for more.